Hi, I'm Annette Pasternak, the Stop Skin Picking Coach, and I'm here today with Tara, who is one of my former clients, and she's a yoga teacher and performer living in London. Welcome, Tara.
Hello, hi.
I'm so glad that you're here today. Thank you so much for joining us. And we'll just have you, mostly it's going to be you talking. I'd love for you to share with my viewers or our viewers, share a bit about your story of
Sure.
skin picking and then, kind of the journey out of it. And yeah.
Fantastic. Well, yeah, it's actually been something it was with me throughout my entire life. Even before I have memories, my parents have told me that this was something I was actually doing. So from a really young age, it's been something that's been with me. And it's kind of transformed through the years to be focused on different parts of my body. And at one point, it was actually eyelash pulling and lots of kind of it came out in very different ways at different points of my life. And it definitely reached a really low point after I graduated from university. I was really it definitely at my worst, it was taking up hours of my day, and it would cause me to miss kind of social engagements, miss out on even work, and just really taking up a lot of my time. And it was a huge kind of stress on my life. So I really kind of hit rock bottom, I think, and I was desperate. So I actually Googled books, self-help books to do with skin picking, and yours was the first that came up. So I ordered the book, and I really, to be honest, I'd actually self-diagnosed, so I hadn't even gone to like a GP, or I hadn't kind of really talked to anyone about it. And it was really through just like Googling skin picking, self-help, that I discovered just how much of an issue it is with so many people. And that was a real relief for me, because first of all, you just don't feel so strange, you don't feel so alone, because I think there's a lot of shame that's also wrapped up in this issue that people are dealing with. And so it was really nice to kind of realise that there are a lot of other people out there struggling with the same thing. So anyway, I got the book, and I really, really rigorously worked through the book. And for me, that was the start of the journey. Every activity that was in there, every kind of log or, kind of game or like practice to put into place, I really worked through it. And it was, for a period of time, it was really draining. It was really hard work, because I was pouring just most of my energy into solving this thing. But and at first it does feel like the progress is very gradual, but it kind of took on its own, it gathered speed, and it kind of, the progress just got faster and faster. And then I guess I felt I hit a kind of plateau, and that's when I decided to reach out to you and to Annette, and to make do some sessions, to kind of give me a little boost along the way. Yeah, and I think we had around 4 sessions together.
Yeah, yeah, I just want to say, Tara, that, you're really unusual in that regard. Like, and it was because you had worked my book so hard that,
Yeah.
and you were doing so much better. So, you had told me when we first met, like you used to pick for hours and hours a day. And at the point that we first met, you were going 10 or 14 days without picking,
Yeah,
but then you would have kind of a binge session.
yeah,
And
yeah,
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 and so you wanted, you know, you kind of, like you said, you reached a plateau, like you didn't know how to,
yeah.
what
I
else
think
to do from there.
yeah, and I think that was a very important point in my recovery was I think I mean everyone's different, but for me there just came a point where I realized that I couldn't do it alone and I actually needed kind of a professional, a coach as you are to guide me through it.
Right.
And that definitely gave me like another boost to kind of get me through to the next kind of stage of my
Mm-hmm.
recovery. Um, and yeah, I think it's a daily kind of practice that you carry with you, and I think all the work that I did through the book and have not just helped me in terms of my picking, it's like changed my life genuinely. Not only do I now have so much more free time and I'm so much more free of fears and anxieties of being alone with myself, but you know, other aspects of my life have completely opened up, and I think that's really important for people to remember that it's like when you're struggling with this form of compulsive behavior, when it changes, other things about your life will change as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the most wonderful things to strive for because you won't be the same person when you let go of this. You will be developing in so many other ways. So I think that's really important to keep in mind when you have relapses or when you feel like, oh my gosh, like I just can't, I'm not progressing. Like you are always progressing. You've got to keep looking back on where you've come from,
Mm-hmm.
and that's really important as well.
Right. It helps you stay encouraged.
Yeah,
And plateaus, like you said, they're going to happen. They're normal.
absolutely.
The important thing is that you're facing the right direction and that you're, you know,
Yeah,
you keep doing the work. So do you remember, I guess, taking it back a little to the stage where you were working from my book, do
yeah.
you remember anything specific that really started helping you the most?
I think it's all there were so many little like foundations to build. I think first and foremost the logging of um, when I was picking and why, the kind of tables that you constructed, that was a really good foundation to like start from because you can really recognize your triggers. And I think that's so important.
Mm-hmm.
And all our triggers are going to be very different. And although it can feel very draining, like every time you do this thing, you have to then write about it.
Mm-hmm.
It gives you it gave me a sense of control, which was really helpful. Um, and then I think all the kind of the kind of ways you remap those neural pathways in terms of understanding kind of cyclical behavior and how to break the cycle was really helpful. But in addition to all the kind of very practical activities that were given, the lifestyle advice and like diet and just self-care advice has really helped me as well. Like I think I was drinking very little caffeine when we were having sessions, but I was still having it occasionally. And I've since completely cut it out, and that has made a massive change. Also, another thing I would say is I've completely cut out refined sugar as well. And it wasn't like I was eating tons of sugar, but even just in small amounts where I didn't realize it would be in certain foods, just completely getting rid of that and finding alternatives has really vastly made a difference, and not just to my picking, like to my energy levels, like my emotional state. Like, I think all that kind of health lifestyle advice is invaluable as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing how, you know, how big a difference there is as
Yeah.
far as going from a little sugar to no sugar. I was
Yeah.
very surprised myself because I was like, I'm a healthy eater. I don't eat very much sugar. But so when you came to see me, we ended up doing more emotional kind of work, right? That I don't know if you
Yeah.
remember what we did, but I have my notes here. So um, yeah, because it was kind of like, I guess it was like your blind spots at that point, right? You've been really good at self help, and not everyone can do that. They say
Yeah.
like 80% of people cannot hold themselves accountable to changing their lifestyle and stuff. So you're one of the lucky 20%,
Oh,
and which is why when we met, I was like, okay, we'll just do a session every other week for
yeah.
let's do like 4 sessions and see how you are. And I think you were doing great by the end of that. And we'll talk about, that was like almost a year and a half ago. So,
Yeah.
we'll talk about since then as well. But do you remember anything about what we worked on? Is there anything that you would want to talk about?
What I really struggled with was feeling emotions in the moment and just allowing them to kind of be and just exist through them. And picking was a way for me to kind of deal with moments of high stimulation, and that could have been through any kind of emotional stimulation, really. It could have been through stress, through sadness, through even joy or excitement. I think I remember doing a lot of stuff with you about revisiting certain moments in the past, or even like before I had been born, which really was interesting and resonated with me a lot. To kind of change my perspective and the way I felt about dealing with my emotions and just being with my emotions. And it's still, I'm young, and it's still something that I, to this day, it's a daily practice for me to remind myself that, to just be with your emotions and just to work through them. And I think it's something particularly in London anyway, that the majority of people struggle with. So yeah, I think the kind of work we did in terms of revisiting past traumatic events is very helpful. It's hard and it can be very draining, but I think if you're really wanting to get a handle on why this compulsion has arisen in you, it's important work that you're going to need to do at some point.
Yes, that was, I'm looking at my notes. 3 out of our 4 sessions were using this technique called timeline therapy, which is
Yeah.
what you said. One of the times it brought you back before you're maybe in the womb or even before. Okay.
So I think it was even farther than that.
Okay, yeah. So sometimes it's like generational or past lives. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, that's amazing. I don't do that, that doesn't come up with everyone but when it does, it's really special. It's just amazing how transformative those exercises can be.
I think the visualization aspect of it as well, because it's very immersive, but it's also very practical. So you really, if you're ready for it, and if you're also committed to going through that process, then it's very transformative.
Yeah. So we did that, and we did the first time we met, we did the emotional freedom technique,
Yes,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, because you had fear of going backwards, and yeah, if you
Definitely.
don't mind
Yeah,
me
and I will
sharing.
mention as well the emotional freedom technique. That's something that I still practice, and
Okay,
I really find
great,
that very, I found that very helpful as well.
excellent. Since we stopped working together in August 2016, and now it's January 2018 when we record this, um, what's what's been your journey with picking since then, or what's it
Uh,
like for you right now?
well, it's definitely it's something that is still with me in my life that I'm still working through and working on, but it's not it it doesn't get in the way of my life at all. It's not an anxiety because it was a constant anxiety. I would wake up in the morning and it would be the first thing I would think about. Um, any event I would go to, any kind of thing I thought about, I would just instantly connect it to picking. And it's just not, my life is just not like that anymore, which is so wonderful. My picking is, it's on an all-time low. It generally happens now around, I would say, once a month, if that, probably for 15 minutes at the most, which is incredible
Mm-hmm.
considering how I used to be losing hours of my day
Mm-hmm.
to this thing, and now it's kind of like it's just something that I know is it's an old kind of coping mechanism that is slowly dying off.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is and also I think that in the beginning of my recovery, I would when I would go for a long span of time without picking and then pick, the emotions I would have about the episode would be I would be so angry with myself. I would be so distraught, and I I don't feel that same way anymore. Like, sure, it makes, if it happens, I feel sad and I feel frustrated, but it doesn't affect my whole day. It doesn't affect, whether I'm going to go somewhere. It's not, it's just, yeah, I feel like a massive weight has lifted off my shoulders,
Yeah.
which is wonderful. And I for anyone who is struggling with this, like, everyone has the power. If because I was doing it from before I can even remember, it was something so ingrained within me. If I can stop, I genuinely think anyone can. Um,
And I
it,
think so too.
yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, it's true. Before you remember, before this lifetime even maybe.
yeah,
And then and like literally like you said every day for hours is what you
yeah,
said you had used to do before you started working on this through my book. And so, yeah, I mean, I hope somebody is listening, is watching this and like, wow, and it gives them that hope that they need to, because that's, honestly, it's half the battle
yeah,
is,
absolutely. It's yeah, and it can feel so lonely, and so isolating. And so I'm really glad that it's something that is the stigma is being removed and people are talking about it, and I'm able to talk about it with people that I meet and engage with now, which is something I would never have been able to do a couple of years ago. I think that's a really important thing to make it, to just bring it out from its hiding place, and then it's not so frightening anymore.
yeah, well, that's wonderful. All right. Well, I guess before we go, is there anything else that you want to share with people?
learning how to really be kind to yourself is hard work. It's crazy. It shouldn't be, but it's really, really hard work, especially for skin pickers, because we're perfectionists. Like, we literally, psychologically and physically, we pick at ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be really hard to cultivate self-care, but it gets easier and easier the more you practice it. So that's where the hope is, I suppose.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's so much of the work that needs to be done, right? I think that's so much of what the picking is here to teach us too, if you want to look at it like that, is that because when you are kinder to yourself, you do less. For sure, like, those times when, you had it picked and then you start again, and then, you probably had like angry thoughts of like, why am I still here doing this? And, why am I, and like just not being kind to yourself, and you can tear yourself away. But, now it's like so much gentler, so much easier. And
Exactly.
all right. Well, Tara, thank you so much for joining me, and for speaking to everybody out there. that
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to reach out to people as well. I think, it makes me really happy.
Oh, I'm so glad. Yeah, I'm glad that you enjoyed it as well. And yeah, it's very fulfilling, right? To be able to give to people a few steps behind you, and I hope people realize that, like, wherever you are right now, like, you're not that far behind Tara or me.
Definitely not. And I used to watch people who posted videos on YouTube about how they'd overcome their compulsions or their picking habits, and I would be like, I'll never, how will I ever get there? I'll never be like this person. But you will.
Yeah.
You can, and you absolutely will.
Yeah, one step at a time. Thanks, everyone. So if you enjoyed Tara, please give her a thumbs up. And if you're not on my channel, subscribe. We have lots of other great things coming.